Okay, we're live. All right, welcome to Speak with Estate Planner, the YouTube channel where we educate people about everything regarding estate planning while interviewing everyone's favorite estate planning attorneys. I'm Heath Rost, your host, and today I'm speaking with Christian Salgado, an estate planning attorney in Southern California, in Santa Maria. Christian, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Heath. I'm excited to be here and share a little bit about what we do here. And just a minor correction, we're on the Central Coast, so we're technically not Southern California.
Okay, right.
We're in Santa Barbara County.
Right. Nice. Cool. So, a lot of families, couples, they want to know more about estate planning. And, finding information and answers to their questions isn't always the easiest thing to do. So today we just hope to answer some more of those basic questions and help people get to know you a little bit more.
Sure. Perfect.
Cool. So I guess kind of just to start out, can you share what type of attorney you are and what makes your practice unique?
Well, I'm an estate planning and administrative attorney. My focus is the planning stage, also the administration stage, which is post-death. After we lose a loved one, there's all these things that you have to do that somehow you're supposed to know to do these things. So we help a lot of families through that. In my particular area, we work with a lot of farmers. It's still a real small part of California. A lot of salt of the earth families like you and I, but there's a lot of farmers, and we do a good amount of more complex work for the taxable estates, tax planning, and just employing different strategies. So that's a piece of my practice that I really enjoy and really get into, just helping people save money for their kids and helping them put some thoughtful plan into motion. So they're all great things, but at the same time, I can say I get a lot of reward from helping just families like mine, just the regular, like I said, salt of the earth families that just, the house is the 401k, that's all they have. So, but we help an array of people here, and that's primarily my focus. Naturally, it gets into real estate law and a lot of business aspects. And I have a couple of associates that work under me that I kind of farm the work out to, and, they help me with my practice. And there's really, at the end of the day, there's a team of us here. There's a couple of associates, paralegals, secretaries, and, they kind of keep me on course. Let's put it that way.
Nice. Wonderful. Great answer. Okay. So I always like to kind of segue into this question right at the beginning.
Sure.
What is your most basic definition of what is estate planning?
Well, I don't know about basic, but the estate planning in a few components, and I think the focus is mistakenly just honed in on the assets. And I think the mistake a lot of people make is, well, hey, I don't have a lot. I don't need a lot. But let me begin by saying the people that maybe have the least, not only do they pay the most at the end of the day, and that's a whole separate conversation, but they also are the most burdensome, and we could get into that if you'd like to, but essentially my view of estate planning is really contemplating one's personal situation. And that could be, hey, I have $1 million in the bank, or I have a whole bunch of bills in my mailbox, whatever that situation may be. It's contemplating your personal situation, your health situation, contemplating your loved ones or the people you depend on, which is a second element there perhaps. And what's going to happen when I'm otherwise incapacitated, when I go around the bend, when I'm laying in the hospital bed? What's going to happen when I'm gone? Who's going to deal with this? And what kind of a burden am I leaving behind? So I think there's different levels of planning. Sometimes it's very simple. Maybe there's a few documents. Sometimes it's complex, and we're planning for an entire year. We're doing work for a family. So, but essentially, just to review, I see the components of estate planning being the contemplation of one's personal situation, contemplation of their support structure or family, and how does that all come to play when I need help or when I'm otherwise. Everybody needs it. And I really want to put an emphasis on people that don't do planning, and they cost the most for their family and are the most burdensome, no matter how much money you have. So generally that statement remains true.
Wonderful. That was a really in-depth, very generous answer.
Okay.
Something that I see is just very common among just all estate planners is you guys are just so generous. You always want to give, as much value in every question that you're answering.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was great. Yeah. There are some people out there that have never heard of the term estate planning.
Sure.
And they don't actually know like why is it that I need a plan? What is that? Estate planning, of course, is planning for your death. So
or your incapacity, I think.
Or incapacity, rightful powers of attorney, things like that. Necessary documents that go into your plan that are all part of one entity that's used in the event that something happens. This is something that people can refer to, that banks can refer to. So yeah, that was a great answer. Next question here. How do you like to work with people?
Well, as far as, I can say I'm pretty flexible. Sometimes maybe there's a few prongs to answering that. Sometimes we're working with individuals and their family members, because you always need that trusted person by your side. And sometimes we need all the decision makers in the room. Sometimes that's not appropriate, but for the most part, I meet with clients in the office. I go to people's houses, telephone, Zoom. It's pretty much however they need it. And I've even unfortunately had to make some trips out to the hospitals, and do that sort of thing, because and if the situation's right, we're definitely there to help. But I think in this industry, you really have to remain flexible. And I think the reality is you have to understand most people put it off. They know they need it, but they just don't get around to it. And when they finally are ready to pull the trigger, it's almost too late. Some of them it is too late. We can't help them at a certain point. But oftentimes you sort of have to just scramble for certain clients. So one of the things I try to do in my practice is I don't really like my calendar too tight and too full, because I always have to think, and I mentioned this to my secretary that, there's always going to be that emergency. There's always going to be that family that's going to call and they need help next, they need help on Saturday because mom is not doing good and she didn't do anything. Now she's finally able to say yes. So I think you just have to remain nimble and just kind of fill out the situation. But, certainly for me, I think one of the things I try to do is make sure that my client has the support they need. So sometimes that is, well, I need my daughter in the room. I need my son in the room. I need I need 5 people on the Zoom call to hear this. And when it's appropriate, we kick the kids out because, sometimes, sometimes you have to.
And it might cause controversy if they are in the room.
Exactly.
Right?
And sometimes you just have to kindly say, I need to speak to my client alone. Can you step out?
No, that's great.
So yeah, we're completely flexible.
Nice. I love that answer. That's a great answer. People, think, to talking to an attorney, it's like this, this scary thing, but, just the way you described it, you seem like you're very approachable. You're able to handle, different situations and you do it the right way. So you don't come across as scary at all.
Sure. Well, I'm really not. And, I learned at a young age, maybe 20 years ago when I was first, I worked in the financial services industry. And, I think that people do have a fear of professionals. And, just treating people like you would your mom's best friend or your next door neighbor. That's what they want. They want to know who you are. And, so I think I try to keep things as relaxed as possible because it's daunting, and I get that. I'm a person too. And if I go to see a doctor, I'm the same way. The doctor starts talking and I just Christian shuts down. I don't hear him anymore. So yeah, I think, we have to do what we can to try to make that connection with our clients.
Nice. Wonderful. Thank you. So let's say a new couple, wants to get started working with you. What does a typical conversation over the phone with you sound like? How long is that initial phone call, and what do you discuss on it?
Well, in my office, we have sort of a process for what we call intake. But sometimes I meet people out on the streets, of course. And usually the way the process goes is, we need to gather some information. In order for me to be respectful of your time and resources, when I sit down with you, I need to have an understanding of what all the factors are and what questions I should be asking. So we typically begin by sending out a little package of information with a questionnaire. And the point of the questionnaire, of course, is to help us gauge, well, what kind of planning do we need? Tell me more about your family, a little bit more about the kids, who's in your life and what's in your life. And in the background, we're looking at real estate, we're checking records to make sure that things are orderly, or to, have a good idea of what we're actually looking at when we go into a meeting. So we typically send that out. Once we get a questionnaire back, we'll schedule an appointment, usually, a little bit out. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's several weeks. But in the background, I could say the attorney is typically spending, an hour or two just looking at things. And again, looking at real estate. And quite often we discover errors or problems. And, if we're going to put our license on it, we need to make sure our client's informed. So that's typically how it looks. And then when we sit down with a client, we have an initial consultation. Sometimes the clients lead the meeting. Sometimes I just say, hey, do you want me just to start at the top? And if there's anything I'm missing, we'll go through it. But we usually have a pretty in-depth conversation. And from there, our clients decide, do they want to engage us or do they not? I think a misconception that people have is that initial consultation. I think sometimes people are trying to feel out, well, do I need this? What is estate planning? Do I even like this attorney? Do I want to be here? So, the consultation is just that. They're basically buying.
So just to clarify what you shared about your process. So you get on the call and you determine, okay, yeah, this is somebody that has a need for estate planning. And so you're really getting on the call so they can request this, the packet questionnaire to fill out and schedule an in-person meeting.
That's correct. In my firm, that is correct. And typically you don't really reach me. There's the gatekeepers, my secretary or my paralegal, usually you would speak with them.
Perfect. And then at that initial meeting, then you go into more in depth about,
exactly
questions and the way you answer.
Exactly.
So,
but that's the process. My secretaries probably has it smoother than I do in explaining it, but that's the process because, I meet people all over town. I volunteer.
Right.
And so,
well, I mean, you're the attorney, you're working on the business, and sometimes you do too much working in the business. So it's hard to explain things like that sometimes.
Exactly.
But yeah, so it sounds like it's pretty easy to get started with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is a fun one. What is the most common question you receive about estate planning?
I think one of them is, do I need a will or a trust, or what's the difference? I don't understand the difference. So that's a common question. And people hear a lot, and there's a lot of people receive a lot of legal advice from non-attorneys. So that's kind of a common thing. People are sort of, hey, what do I need? What do I need, this or do I need that? So yeah, I'd say we get a lot of that. That's a pretty fair answer, I believe.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. So, if you're out there and that's the sort of question that you have, this is what, reaching out to an attorney and having that conversation would look like. You can ask that sort of question and it's totally okay. There's no stupid questions.
Yeah. Oh, never, never. Yeah, it's, I don't know how, like I said earlier, I don't know how people are supposed to know all these things, but if you don't ask, you're never going to know.
There's so, yeah, right. And everybody's, financial situation is different. And how could you possibly get all these questions answered? It can seem daunting at times. So
yeah, and it goes, it kind of he extends a little beyond that. Sometimes it's what are the dynamics for my kids, or are any of them on any government benefits? I think a really good attorney, and this kind of takes you back to law school, but a really good attorney, I believe, approaches everything considering possibility and not probability. So, there's all, I'm no longer in the financial services industry. I can't err on probability. Like, those days are done for me. I have to think of possibility. And so it's a step beyond the person in front of me. It's tell me about the kids, tell me about the grandkids, tell me your concerns, tell me about their lifestyles, so it kind of just branches out. That's for sure.
Nice. Very cool. Okay, so this next question that I have for you, this is just a comment that you'd made to me that I thought was really unique, that maybe you could elaborate more on.
Okay.
You mentioned that you like working on gifting plans, tax planning,
right,
and more exotic mechanisms. You said so. Tell me more about that.
Well, so maybe to start from the top, and let's try to keep it pretty linear and simple. I sort of need it that way. People sometimes want to transfer assets, sometimes during their lifetimes, or even after their deaths, but they want to control how fast that transfer takes place. A lot of times our clients are motivated for tax reasons, but not always. Sometimes it's, hey, I want to teach my kids some responsibility. I want to bring them to the table on how to manage these assets. But, for some of our listeners who maybe, or viewers, I should say, who maybe aren't exactly aware, but there is a tax if you have done too well and you give away too much. And there's a tax that your family will absorb one day, or your heirs for that matter. And so there's different strategies on how to avoid that. There's different plans we put in place, like for real estate. They can get very complex. There's such a concept as fractional discounting that perhaps goes beyond the scope of today's time we have together. But these little strategies are put into place on how do we transfer this asset? And again, maybe I just want Junior to have it now, or maybe I'm worried that if I die, all my money's buried in this dirt and they're going to have to sell the farm because somebody's going to have to pay the $3 million tax bill.
Right.
And we would have never thought this land would have been worth that much. And we get a lot of that. In our area, there's a lot of row crops. There's a lot of vineyards, a lot of wine in this area, that sort of thing. So, our families, like I said, they're salt of the earth families. They would have never anticipated they would have the net worths that they do, but it's just, we're in a great part of California. So there's different strategies to remove assets from your estate.
Right.
There's ways to sort of compress the value, if you will, through fractional discounts. And, in other times, there's a whole array of tools that attorneys can use. There's one of the things I really love that, again, is beyond the scope of this, of our time today, is like an intentionally defective grantor trust. It's an amazing tool. It's not for everybody, but for the people that take their time to learn about it, yeah, you can save your family so much money and you deserve so much wealth. And oftentimes it doesn't take wealth to have to employ some of these more sophisticated strategies. Sometimes it's
That's a
just
really good point.
concerns. Sometimes it's, you know what, we have a blended family. We're not rich people, but you know what, I'm worried about my daughter. She might go through a divorce. You know what, I'm worried about my son. A lot of medical issues. So the complexities are there. They just go unrecognized, I think.
Right. Well, and you know, just the same way everybody's, you know, the size of their estate, their finances, their properties, the way it's all different. Everybody's family dynamic is also different. So you might have a really, really big family, you know, and depending on, you know, what your estate size is and what, you know, what you have and what you want to pass on, there might be some really unique and awesome ways that you can, you know, pass on that legacy. And that's, you know, after, you know, we figure out, you know, all right, what is it that you have? What can you do with it? And that's why people sit down with you and discuss those options.
Absolutely. And the what can you do with it is a big piece. And you're exactly right. I think you hit the nail on the head, because people don't really, they have a feeling, they have some wants, but they just don't know how that looks. And sometimes they just need to sit down and say, oh, wow, we can do that. That really, you know, we can do that if we can do it. And, you know, I hear that a lot. So, you know, we're there, of course, to effectuate our clients' goals.
Wonderful. Thanks. Okay. So I just have one last question for you. And then we'll let you go. Thank you again for hopping on with us today.
Absolutely.
So in this last question, so I'm going to ask you to step out maybe of that attorney role and just think about, you know, where you were when you did your estate plan for you.
Sure.
And my question is, what would you say to a family or a couple that's just getting started with estate planning that you wish you had known when you first got started?
You know, I would say don't underestimate our blind spots and all the things we don't think through, maybe. In going back to the point of possibility as opposed to probability, there's just a lot of things when you're younger, you don't see the domino effects that could happen if something happens to me or something happens to my spouse, or what are the implications on the kids, and you know, how do we create a nest of money for them that maybe isn't there today, but we need them to have it if mommy and daddy are gone. So you know, I think just again, to reiterate, probably don't underestimate the blind spots. I think the professionals do bring that to the table. Certainly, you know, Christian, I wasn't born with all this knowledge. You know, it's passed down, you know, from a lot of people in the practice that have came and gone before you. So, but yeah, I think that the one of the big mistakes people can make is just to put it off. And I think people know that. They know they need something, but they just kind of put it off. And I'll worry about that next week. But I think that that's a huge error. Absolutely.
Awesome. Wonderful answer. Great. So lastly, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, if they'd like to get in touch with me, they could Google me. My name is Christian Salgado, and look me up. They could find me at my firm's website, which is kirkseamus.com, or give me a call. Again, they might get some of my gatekeepers, but our phone number is 805-934-4600. My email and contact information is on the website. And, you know, they can just reach out to me there, and or even find me on Facebook, you know.
And we'll make sure that we link up your site and your phone number in the description of the video.
Perfect.
As well. Awesome.
Perfect. I appreciate it.
Great. So again, this is Christian Salgado, an estate planning attorney in Santa Maria. And I am Heath Rost, your host